Good morning, everybody. I am Denise Luker, the president of the Norfolk Area Chamber, and we're happy to bring you this information. I will do a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions, please type them in the chat box and we will address them at the end. Congressman Fortenberry will be joining us at 10:30, and he also will be available for questions after his presentation. Please mute your microphones. And this meeting is being recorded for viewing later. If someone you know could not make it, please share this with them. Now I am so happy to introduce Ethan Hellier from the U.S. Chamber, who will give us an overview of the Federal CARES Act. Thank you, Ethan, for coming.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'm going to go through the Federal CARES Act as best I can. Just a little housekeeping on my part. The room to the left of me, I have a virtual first grade classroom, and I also have a dog that likes to greet every person that walks by. So if there's a little background noise,
that's good.
I'm just going to throw it out there now. So we'll get started here. The Federal CARES Act, which you've probably heard it known as the Phase 3 bill. A lot of people on the press have been calling it that, mostly because it's the third bill that Congress has passed that's looking to combat COVID-19. All in all, it's a $2 trillion package. That's 10% of our whole GDP. And it has the possibility to grow another $4 trillion as it's being run through the Federal Reserve. So there is room for this, for the value of this bill to grow. Before we get into more conversation on what's out there for businesses of all sizes, we're going to look at what's out there for taxpayers. One of those is that single filing taxpayers will get a $1,200 stimulus check if they make under $75,000. This starts to phase out on top of the $75,000 and is completely phased out at $98,000. Also, if you're filing a joint tax return, it's a $2,400 stimulus up to $150,000 and begins to phase out after that and is completely knocked off at $198,000. Also, there's for each child that you claim on your taxes, there's a $500 stimulus on top of that. A couple of other things that's out there for workers and taxpayers is that expanded unemployment insurance. So we all know if you file for unemployment, you do it through the state. There's a whole list of qualifications of, are you looking for work? Where have you been looking? All those sort of qualifications, if you're laid off for COVID-19, is no longer there. Essentially, if you're out of work for COVID-19, you can get unemployment. And what the federal government did is whatever your regular rate would be for the state, you're going to get $600 on top of that until the end of July or until when you're called back to work. We've heard from a lot of people worried about with the expanded unemployment that people will be incentivized to stay out of work, but there'll be guidance from the federal government to states that communicate with businesses that when a worker is called back, that benefit will end that day. So the whole program sunsets July 31st, but as soon as a worker's called back, let's say, we kind of bend the curve a little bit in June and the dial starts and people are going back to work. As soon as you go back to work, that benefit ends. So we're going to cover everything that's in there for businesses. We're going to look at what's out there for all businesses, then look very briefly at what's out there for large businesses. But we're going to spend the bulk of our time on small businesses. It's kind of the bread and butter of this bill. And that's where a lot of the new things that are out there are in this section of the bill, including the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP as I'll call it, and then the typical SBA economic injury disaster loans, or EIDL loans as they're most normally called. Also, talk a little bit about the Phase 2 bill and the Paid Sick Leave and the Family Medical Leave Act, which was also in that bill as well. So things that are out there for all businesses. One of them is the delayed payment of payroll taxes. So, FICA taxes. They're not forgiven, but you can delay it up until January 1st, 2021. And you'll owe 50% of what you delayed by the end of 2021 2021 and the other 50% by the end of 2022. However, if you do this, you will not qualify for the PPP program, which again, I will talk about in the next couple slides. There's also some other tax changes. If you operated on loss for 2018, 19, and 20, you can carry that back another 5 years. There's accelerated recovery of A&T credits, and then also there's an option to increase your limit on interest deductibility to 50% for 2019-20. Then also this last thing, if you qualify for it, you'll already know it's a change and a fix from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It's really for restaurants and retail stores. It's the quality improvement property fix. It's really just for retail stores and restaurants. If you qualify, you'll know about it because you've been fighting to get this back since the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Another thing that's out there for all businesses is the employee retention credit. Essentially what this is, if you shut down or if you have a 50% drop in gross revenue, you will qualify for this credit until you get back up to 80% and reopen. It's a refundable tax credit to cover 50% of wages up to $10,000 per worker. So it's a Washington, D.C. way of saying it's a $5,000 tax credit for workers. Employers with more than 100 employees, this credit only applies to people that are being paid to not work. If the business is under 100 workers, the business will get a tax credit for each person that pays, whether they're working or not. So it's really a good tax credit for smaller businesses, and the fact that they're still paying their workers to be able to supplement some of that cost. And it's also good for larger businesses that have maybe the capital to have people not be at work but still pay them and get a little bit of a credit back on their salary. However, if you choose this program, you will not qualify for that PPP. So it's out there for the mid-size and larger businesses. It's a $454 billion loan from the Treasury. You've probably heard about the quote-unquote bailout for the airlines. This is what that is. The airline industry and other critical businesses qualify for this. However, if a business takes this, there's a restriction using that money for a stock buyback. Also, folks in the C-suite cannot get any higher compensation or bonuses, I believe, up till a year or until the loan is paid back. Now, this is, I guess probably why everyone tuned in. This is the small business stuff. This is the new program that is being run by the SBA, but will be loaned out of your local lenders or a larger lender like a Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank. Anyways, the PPP, it's a $349 billion program for small businesses, generally less than 500 workers, 501c3s, the self-employed folks on 1099s, all that, they will qualify or can qualify for this program and for these loans. Now, if you typically qualify for a SBA loan, you'll likely qualify for this loan. However, there are some exemptions of people who normally don't qualify for a SBA loan that will qualify. One of those being they're looking at retail stores and restaurants. The 500 cap is count at each physical spot. So if you're a franchisee of something, it's not the total number of people you have working for you, it's each physical location counts and restarts the 500. So what the loan is, what you'll do is you'll take an average of your monthly payroll and you'll times that by 2.5. It's to cover 2.5 months of average payroll capped at $10 million. These will, kind of like I said, these will be brought out by local banks. So it's guaranteed by the federal government and the SBA, but local banks will be the ones that are handing out these loans. Treasury said that they should be ready to go by Friday. What's nice about these loans is that there's no collateral or personal guarantee, which is typical of a SBA loan and probably really any loan you can get from the bank. And what's nice is that these loans can turn into grants. If you spend them on payroll, rent, interest on your mortgage, gas, water, electric, all that, for that 8-week period, and if you don't reduce the number of employees or reduce their wages by 25% or more, you will qualify to get this loan turned into a grant. Now, since this was just brought forward or signed by the president on Friday and is not really going to get rolling until late this week into next week, there's been a lot of businesses that have had to lay off workers. But if you bring them back within 30 days and maintain them through the end of June, you still may qualify for this grant program. And a grant program is not all or nothing. There'll be a sort of calculation based on how much of the loan turns into a grant and how much you have to pay back. If you don't have to pay anything back, it's essentially a wash. You won't have to pay interest, any of that. So if you qualify for the whole grant program, the loan at the end of the day will end up costing you. You can learn more about this at our website, uschamber.com/SB loans. And we got a kind of a 4-page guidance that you can look at and go to, and it kind of lays out in more layman's terms of what this program is. Also, you can contact your local SBA office. They can give you more details on that. And then also, once you want to apply for it, you can go to your local lender. And I'm sure Congressman Fortenberry's office would be more than willing to help you on this as well. There's a lot of resources out there because they want to, essentially the program, it's, the whole bill is 880 pages, but what they're trying to do here is they want to get money in the hands of businesses and workers as fast as possible. So if you could boil all 880 pages down, that's the number one goal. That's what they want to do. So it's really focused on getting money back. It's not in a way of a tax cut or a bailout or whatever you want to call it. It's a way to get liquid cash to businesses now. So some of the other things that are out there. EIDL loans, as I talked about, this has been through the SBA for years. If you've had a natural disaster, a tornado, obviously not a hurricane, here in the Midwest, but you've probably heard of a EIDL loan before. And just a kind of breakdown of what this is. Again, it's the small business loan, so it's less than 500 workers, 1099s, all that. Also, it includes faith-based nonprofits as well. It's up to a $2 million capital loan, a 30-year term, 3.75% rate or 2.75% for nonprofits. You can defer these payments up to a year. You'll still pay interest, but you can defer the payment. Loans are based on credit score. You don't need a tax return. Up to $200,000, you don't need a personal guarantee, which is completely different than any other loan you could take out. No collateral for any loan, $25,000 or less. Also, there's a $10,000 grant that you can get within about 3 days, and it's a grant, so you don't have to repay it. And it's essentially supposed to keep businesses flush until they can find out what loan they qualify for. So it's kind of a $10,000 to get you rolling. Again, it's a $10,000 grant. You won't have to pay it back. But if you get a PPP loan, that $10,000 grant will be part of any grant money you get back. So if you get a PPP loan and you take the $10,000 grant, whatever your grant would be, if you qualify, you'll slash off $10,000 from the top. So looking at a little bit what's in the phase 2 bill is the paid sick leave. Employers with less than 500 workers are required to provide 10 days of paid sick leave if it's related to COVID-19. The sick leave can be taken when you're ill or quarantined. It can be used to take care of a quarantined family member or take care of a child during a child care or school closure. Leave is paid at your regular rate, but it's maxed out at $511 per day if you're taking it for yourself, and it's paid at a 2/3 rate or maxed out at $200 if you're taking it to take care of a family member. This is all 100% going to be reimbursed by the federal government. You'll have a little cost up front, but the federal government's going to work with you to get the money back to you as soon as possible. Again, this is a temporary program. This is not something permanent that's going to be out there. Also, this leave is on top of anything you provide. So if you have a paid sick leave program, this is on top of what you provide. This is additional benefit for workers. There is an exemption for businesses that have 50 or less workers that can be exempt from this program, only in the fact of if you're watching a child that was part of a school closure, that part can be exempted for 50 or less workers, or if it threatens the viability of your business. Again, Department of Labor has laid out guidelines for this. This is a little more complicated. You'll have to contact them to see if you qualify for this. And also, just as an FYI, like me and like a lot of us are doing, we're teleworking. So if you can telework and pretty much do your job from home, you do not qualify for paid sick. It was also paid FMLA. Again, probably something that most of you at least have heard of, but this is a temporary program that was in the phase 2 bill. Again, it's 500 workers or less. They're required to provide 10 paid FMLA leave if the worker has to take off work to take care of a child because of school or child care closure caused by COVID-19. The leave is paid at 2/3, kind of like how it was paid in the paid, or how it's laid out in the paid sick leave. Maximum $200 a day and no more than $10,000 total. Paid FMLA is again on top of whatever your business already provides as a benefit. Again, it's kind of the same exemptions of being less than 50 workers. You might qualify to be exempt from this program if you're covering for daycare for your child. So again, Department of Labor, check that out. It's tricky. I don't know how many will qualify for that, but there is a way to do that. And again, there's no paid leave if you can telework. So if you can telework from home, you don't get the Family Medical Leave Act. So to get any more information, you can check out uschamber.com, or also we have a small business resource, uschamber.com/co. Co is our small business function. And it's kind of laid out best practices and kind of what we recommend for small businesses moving forward. So this time we can take questions or clarifications or really anything you guys have.
We have had some questions submitted. Did you want to go through those?
Sure. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay, I just figured I'd take the PowerPoint down.
And if anybody would like a copy of that PowerPoint, please email us at the chamber, dwilkinson@norfolkareachamber.com.
And we'll also post it.
And we'll also post it on all social media and the website.
Great.
One thing that was asked was, does the employee have to exhaust all their PTO or sick time before using the SDC package or unemployment?
The short-term compensation?
No, because if a business is going to lay off someone, then they're laid off. So you don't have to go through and burn all your vacation or sick pay unless the business is offering for you to do that. But if they're laying you off, then you're going to get UI or unemployment.
Another question we had in the chat box: are local foods producers eligible for the SBA Paycheck Protection Program?
Local what?
Food producers.
Food producers. There are programs for ag. As far as the SBA loans go, from what I heard, that if you grow it, you plant it, you pick it, you sell it. It's a completely different program. But I would recommend going to the SBA's website, and they'll have guidance from what you want to do from there.
Another question we have: if you do not qualify for the money per person, the $1,200 because of the phase out, do you still get the money for the children?
Good question. I believe you do. Yeah. I'll have to double check on that. I know the one thing I do know is that if you're a single filer and you are past that $75,000 income stream, it starts to phase out to 98,000. So you'll still get something, but yeah, I believe, and I'll double check on that you get the $500 credit. However, if you're the head of the household, you have, I believe it's $102,000 threshold, so that might clear that up a little bit. So if you're the only person in the house that works, your threshold on income goes up quite a bit.
Thank you. Can a business apply for the PPP as well as the EIDL?
Yeah, so there's probably been quite a few businesses that have applied for the EIDL loans. And what you can do is you can go into your local lender, you can refinance that loan to try to qualify for PPP. Or you can have both, but you can't double up. You can't get an EIDL loan to try to cover payroll and get a PPP loan and cover payroll. The PPP is supposed to cover, the keeping the lights on expenses plus payroll. So if you do an EIDL loan, it'll have to cover something different. You can't get two loans for the same purpose.
And can you explain how the $600 extra unemployment works with part-time staff?
Yeah, so if you qualify for unemployment in your state, no matter what that qualification is, the $600 will be added on. It's just as long as the state takes it, every governor has to sign off that they're going to take it. As long as they take it, that $600 will be added on to whatever you qualify for from the state. It's a flat fee, or not flat fee, but like kind of a flat stimulus across the board. There's really no discrepancy in that.
Okay, if you only do the EIDL, can a portion be forgiven for payroll and the remainder used as a loan?
So if you only qualify for the EIDL loan, the part that can be forgiven is that $10,000 like cash advance. Any small business will qualify for that. What you'll do is you'll contact the SBA or a lender. You get your $10,000 cash advance normally within about 3 days. So no matter what loan you qualify for, that part you'll still get. Even if you don't qualify for PPP to get an EIDL loan, you can still get the $10,000 grant.
Okay. We have someone who asked, they have a current employee that is quarantined, but they weren't tested for COVID. Assuming he does not have this but gets sick again, do we need to provide sick leave for both instances?
You only have to provide the sick leave that's mandated by the government if it's a COVID related time off of work. So if the period of time he's off of work is related to COVID, then it's covered. If it's just cold or the typical flu or whatever the case may be, that's not covered. It has to be COVID related in order to get the benefit.
Okay. Is the EIDL SBA grant for $10,000 to be used for any business expense or only payroll?
Any business expense, whatever you need. It's a spend. The idea is it's supposed to keep you flush until you can get a second loan. If you got a big debt payment coming up, you can put it towards that or whatever. It's a way to keep the lights on for a couple more days until you can get the loan that fits your business the best.
The CARES Act allows the employer portion to be deferred until that 2021-2022 dates. Is the deferral applied to deposits that are due during the period 3/27 to 12/31 of 2020, or to wages paid during that period or earned during that period?
So this is for the payroll tax holiday. Is that what they're asking on? Yeah. So you don't have to pay or you can defer the employer portion of payroll starting the day this bill was signed, so last Friday, up until the end of the year. And then you'll owe 50% at the end of 2021, whatever that value was, and the other 50% at the end of 2022. So yeah, starting Friday, going to the end of the year.
Under the Nebraska DHMs, we are required to quarantine for a fever. So does that mean it is required for sick leave?
That's a good question. That one, I'm going to check on that one again as well. I would look to the Department of Labor for a clear answer, but that's something that I can look into. I believe since it's a federal program that it has to be COVID related, or it has to be definitely COVID related absence, but I can double check on that. Department of Labor should have a clear answer on that as well.
And someone asked where you apply for the $10,000 grants.
Local lenders.
Okay, so local banks.
Yep.
Okay.
So, hold on. Ethan, so a COVID-related event is you test positive or you have children at home? Or is
Right.
there anything else?
No, it's so if you test positive or if you're taking care of a family member at home that's tested positive, or if, well, and now with so many schools closing, you know, a lot qualified, but if you have to stay home to watch your kid, now it's, you know, as I said, it's a different rate if you're just staying home because of a school or daycare closure. It's not full salary.
The next question is, could you provide some clarification as to the forgiveness timeline? Is it just whatever is spent on the loan in the 8-week period that is forgiven, or is the entire loan forgiven?
Well, the loan will be given off a 8-week period. So yeah, the whole loan will be forgiven during that time. Now there could be extension on that if Congress comes to do a phase 4 bill, but right now it's really just looking at the temporary 8-week period. So it's the loan you get is only going to be to cover your, you know, keeping the lights on expenses plus payroll, and they'll do the calculation based on a average month of your payroll.
Okay.
So I guess to say on top of that there shouldn't be excess money in the loan that's not, or that could not turn into a grant. The bank should do a close enough calculation to figure out exactly what your payroll and keep the lights on bills will be for that 8 weeks.
Okay, I've had a restaurant and a beauty salon where one of them had somebody in testing and the other one was proactive. They went ahead and laid the people off. The people have started their employees to apply for unemployment. They can still retroactively go back and get the paycheck protection, right? They can still
Yes.
apply.
So if they bring them back within 30 days and keep them employed until June 30th, and don't cut them again, and don't cut their wages by more than cut them by more than a quarter, yes, they could still turn their loan into a grant.
But I mean, 30 days might be extended based upon our situation in the community if we are not allowed to open.
Well, it's not so much bringing them back to work, it's bringing them back and putting them on payroll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're a non-essential business, a shutdown business, it's bringing them back and using the government loan to pay them.
Okay.
Not so much bring them back to work and pay them.
There was a question, is there a plan in place if the allotted funds for this program run out and applications are still being processed?
That's most likely would be something that they're gonna have to look at in phase 4, but also, you know, the fact that the Federal Reserve can grow this by, you know, another $4 trillion. At this point, we don't foresee the federal government cutting off anyone getting a loan between now and the end of June, when you can apply for either a EIDL or PPP loan.
Okay, and someone on the call submitted all of the information for the SBA loan and $10,000 grant online. They did not use a local lender. Did they miss a step? Did they need to go talk to someone locally?
No. As far as anything you're going to get from, I believe you can get that 10,000 grant from the SBA now, but once lenders kind of get, you know, ducks in a row, that they'll be the ones doing the $10,000 loan as well. So no, if they got an EIDL loan and they're getting the grant and they went through the SBA, you know, to my knowledge and, you know, to everything that they said, that they're doing it right. No, they didn't miss a step, unless once PPP gets rolling, if they want to refinance that loan into a PPP loan, then they will go to a local lender, a Wells Fargo or U.S. Bank or whatever to do that.
Okay. And I'll just throw out quickly too, we're expecting Congressman Fortenberry here at 10:30. So if he is on the line, we'll take a short break and listen to his remarks. Otherwise, I'll keep going here. If an employee was sent home because they may have been around someone who tested positive, do we have to pay sick leave?
If they're being quarantined, yes.
If you lay off an employee in February, can you still apply for the loan and then bring the employee back? Can you still get the loan forgiven?
Let's see. I think if you laid them off in February, no, because that's outside of that 30-day window. But anyone else, maybe that part of the loan won't get turned into a grant, but the other, 90 or 95% of it will. But as far as someone being laid off in February, no, they would not. Their wages would not qualify to be turned in from a loan to a grant. But anyone else within that 30-day window would.
If a business contracts their employees through another business, can we still pay our employees' payroll to the contract business? And can we still apply for the PPP and EIDL loan in that situation?
I believe so. Yeah, if your business is in charge of payroll for a independent contractor or whatever, if they're on your payroll, they should qualify.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll get a link to the guidance that the SBA and Department of Labor has put out, and then I'll take a look at the question about the $500 credit, as well as the question having to do with a further clarification of the pay leave, and I'll send that out to you. You can send that out to your members. Some of the SBA guidance might not be out there yet, but it should be out by the end of the week. This is still very new, that they're still, not reading through it, but they're still making the guidance, and there's a lot of leeway for the SBA, Department of Labor, to kind of figure out how they're going to run these programs.
And we've had two questions about the business owner's salary being included in the estimated payroll amount for the PPP loan.
Yeah, so the PPP loan only covers it only covers the people who work for you. If you're, the salary you pay yourself will have to come out of a separate part of the loan, but your salary is not. A loan that you take on your salary cannot be converted into a grant.
And once again, we are expecting Congressman Fortenberry to join us. So if he's on the line, please step in, and we'd love to hear your remarks. Another question, I'm not sure if we've answered this. Are we able to apply for both the Paycheck Protection Loan and the Economic Disaster Injury Loan?
Yes, you can apply for PPP and EIDL. You just can't use the money you get for the loan to cover the same, to cover like the same business expense. It has to. So PPP is for payroll, so you can't use the EIDL for payroll as well. As far as your daily expenses, it has to be used for a separate part of your business.
Ethan, what kind of timeline are we looking at? I mean, if people do apply, is it going to be weeks, or is there?
It should be days. They're trying to turn this around as fast as possible. Really, the delay now is just getting all private lenders in line, and making sure that they all have the same information and how to bring out these loans, kind of a rollout period. So no, it shouldn't be weeks at it shouldn't be weeks at a time. In fact, the PPP loans should come quicker since they're coming from a private lender, where idle loans may take a little bit longer. SBA is just not as efficient as a private bank is.
Okay, and I'm sorry if this has already been answered. Regarding the emergency pandemic, Nebraska state unemployment benefits, if an hourly employee has their hours reduced by half, or a salaried employee's pay is reduced by half due to COVID, are they eligible for unemployment benefits through the state of Nebraska while still being employed?
No, they have to be completely laid off well, I would assume based on, kind of many states and how that works. To get unemployment, you have to be, unemployed. You can't just be losing part of your salary or, benefits. So I would assume, based on your state laws, that no, if they're at half salary or half benefits or whatever, that no, they would not qualify for UI until they were completely laid off.
Well, would that be covered under the short-term compensation plan? Or that's something?
The $10,000 grant, is that weird?
The short-term compensation, where if you cut their hours by 10% to 60%, they still can get unemployment. Is that a state Department of Labor question, probably?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, okay.
If an owner of a restaurant closes due to COVID-related issues, will that have an effect on the PPP loan or idle loan?
Hi, this is Marie Woodhead from Congressman Fortenberry's office. He is finishing up a call with the Speaker's office right now, and if just a few more minutes, he will jump on the line. If you have a few more questions you can answer, we'll be here shortly.
Thank you, Marie.
Yep.
So, if the restaurant is forced to close, it sounds like in your state that is going county by county. Governor has not issued a statewide closure of anything, but if a restaurant is forced to close and they're not doing takeout or anything like that, if it's a forced closure, wait, was the question if they qualify for the loan or if their workers can get UI? I'm sorry, what was?
Just if it has an effect on the loan. So
it only has an effect on the loan. Well, it shouldn't have an effect on the loan. It only has an effect on the grant period. Because, if you want to take a loan and then close your business and still, pay it off, that's kind of your own, that's your own choice. But if you're trying to get your loan to keep into a grant, you can close your, store or restaurant or whatever, but you have to keep paying all of your full-time workers, and you can't cut their wages by more than a quarter.
Okay. If an employee chooses to stay home and they haven't been quarantined, do we still have to pay sick leave?
It's my understanding, no. That seems pretty general, but yeah, if it's a I'm not, if your agreement is, if you're a essential business or whatever, and there's an employee that says, nope, I'm just not coming in. No, you won't have to pay them for that. There has to be, proof of a COVID-19 related issue. It can't be just, I'm not coming into work because I don't feel safe or whatever. That's kind of their choosing. And
then, can you apply for just a $10,000 grant, or do you only qualify? Go ahead.
If you're a business and all you feel that you need right now to keep going is that $10,000, you can apply for that, get the grant, and you're on your way, and you're not paying anything back.
And then once again, can you reiterate, can a business owner's salary be included in the estimated payroll amount for the PPP loan?
I don't believe so, no. Employees, their salary is only covered up to $100,000. So if they make over that, the loan that the business gets to pay them only covers up to that $100,000. Since the business owner, again, this is something that I'm going to check on, but I believe no, the business owner's salary I mean, you could take out a loan to pay yourself, but it's my understanding that you cannot qualify your salary into the grant. It'll have to be something that you take as a loan.
Okay.
But I'll check on that.
Are there any more questions at this time while we wait for Congressman Fortenberry?
Which programs are 501c6s eligible for and 501c3?
So 501c3 is eligible. I think I don't remember if it was just the PPP or if it was the EIDL loan as well. Let me just double check here 1 second. So the EIDL loan is all nonprofits. The PPP is, 1 second.
Sorry, I gave you a hard one.
Oh, that's all right. PPP is only 501c3 as far as nonprofit goes. So if you're a nonprofit, you can apply for a EIDL loan. It won't be a grant, but you can get the loan. If you're C3, you can get a loan and get it granted. So obviously chambers are 501c6s, and I believe you guys signed on to it. We sent a letter up to the Hill. Essentially, there was no member of Congress talking about local chambers when they were doing this. And we realized that as C6s that they can get loans, but they can't get their loan changed into a grant. So we sent a letter up there, and now I've heard hundreds of members talking about it. So it's definitely on the forefront. I saw yesterday, Illinois Chamber had a meeting with Senator Durbin, and he brought it up with them. So it's on their radar, and it's something that might be in the phase 4 bill. And, we're going to keep, kind of beating the drum on that. But as of right now, you can get the loan, but you can't get the grant. But, if you guys at the chamber need to go out and get that $10,000 kind of cash advance, you can do that right now. And that part will be a grant.
Thank you.
And can you reiterate where to go for just the $10,000 grants?
Local lenders or the SBA. I at this point, I would look at the SBA's website and go with them, because as we sit here on the 1st on Thursday, lenders are not ready to go for PPP loans yet, but the SBA has been doing EIDL loans, and essentially what they just got different qualifications from the federal government to these EIDL loans. They've been doing EIDL loans for years now. Now it's easier to get them. So as soon as the bill passed, they were rolling already. So if you need a loan right now, and you want to start with an EIDL loan, and maybe you refinance it to a PPP loan down the road, you can get the EIDL loan today.
And I just want to pause again really quick. Do we have Congressman Fortenberry on the line yet? Okay. We have 2 employees at this particular business with high-risk children. One has a doctor's note to stay home and stay isolated. Does this require us to pay the 10-day sick leave?
I believe if you have a doctor's note, yes. Again, guidance from the Department of Labor will be helpful. I'll find that one. I looked at it earlier. I'll find that. I'll send it. But that might be when it gets nitty gritty down like that. I would maybe try to contact them. Because obviously you're trying to do what's best for you, but also you don't want to get caught into not providing the right service. So I would recommend contacting them on that, because there are so many different expectations of if you don't have COVID-19 but your doctor says stay home, does that trump what the federal government is saying here? So there's a little bit of trickiness in there that I would contact them for complete clarification, because there's a lot of little alleyways you can get stuck going up and down on this.
Ethan, do you have, what's the best way to contact like Small Business Administration or Department of Labor? Have you found website or calls?
Yeah. So SBA probably has a local office probably near you. Maybe not in right near you, but there is a local office that serves your region that you can contact, or you can go right to their website, and there's a COVID-19 tab that you can click on, and there'll be all the right, contacts for that. Department of Labor, same thing. They don't have, regional offices, but it's all out of Washington. But they also have a COVID-19 tab with all the resources you would need, and emails and numbers to dial. Now it's been really nice that all these, at least the federal agencies that are acting to help during the COVID-19 pandemic, that they've put tabs right on their website, so you don't have to dig through. You can go right on there and you can find the right person to talk to. It's the feds are trying to be as efficient as possible. It's something that Congress has been saying that they want to do, and President has obviously said that as well. So they're trying to be as efficient as humanly possible.
We will get those local numbers and post it along with the video. So.
And for anyone following along, we gave this information out in our last webinar, but our local SBA contact is, he's the director, is Leon Millibar, and we'll post this for you. But the number to call is 402-221-3620. 402-221-3620. And we'll take any more questions at this time. Sure.
Okay, the local Department of Labor number is 402-370-4418. That is 402-370-4418. Oh, Congressman Fortenberry has joined us. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me to participate. I apologize for the delay because we were just on a national call with Dr. Fauci, who's a household name now, as everybody's aware, who's just a key medical expert, and very, I went wrong, Marie. I messed it up. Sorry, I messed up. I touched the screen. Don't touch the screen. Don't touch it. We're back. Okay. See, your children are texting you in the middle of this.
Oh, good Lord. I do apologize.
No problem.
Oh.
We're all in this together, right?
So I told Maria, your phone so I can listen on my phone to the other thing. But now, is Atticus okay? So anyway, we usually have a routine with Marie. Her sons start calling at about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Not this early, but with everybody at home. Anyway, thanks again for welcoming me to this. And I apologize for the delay. Dr. Fauci was given an overview, just taking questions from members of Congress. Look, there's no easy answers. Everybody knows this. We're trying to do 3 things at once: protect the healthcare system, protect individuals and families, and protect small business. That's the only answer. And if we can align all these things through, on the healthcare side, social distancing, necessary closures to keep the spread of the disease from overwhelming the healthcare system, while also correcting flaws in our fragmented healthcare system in terms of the supply chain, a lot of which came from China, protective equipment, as well as drugs, which is almost unconscionable. I was honestly raising that issue before this pandemic, but after we're past this, we're going to go back to legislation. And honestly, from my perspective, just like military equipment, all of this medical equipment needs to be made in America. This is so severe and wrong as what has happened to our country. But that's a side issue for another day. So it's trying to, again, to the degree we can, use our federal system, which is both centralized and decentralized at the same time, particularly in terms of healthcare response, because FEMA is now basically in charge of the emergency response, particularly for protective equipment. The president has a task force looking at all dynamics of the disease, particularly how quickly efficacious cures can get out there. There's some talk of the malaria medicine now being possibly effective, but Dr. Fauci, he's not real enthusiastic about that. He's saying there's anecdotal evidence, stories, and if it works, great. We're all hoping it will, but it's not clear that it will be. From my perspective, just a quick overview of my day, I'm answering the phone from Lorraine, who's on disability, who is worried about getting her check, all the way to major drug companies saying, we have another insight here, but we're stuck at the FDA level, so we're trying to get to the Food and Drug Administration to try to get processes that we believe are valid in line so that they can give consideration. In that regard, that kind of is my lane, because I'm what's called the ranking member of the Agricultural Subcommittee on Appropriations in Congress, and so we have oversight responsibility of the Food and Drug Administration. So the second part of this, again, healthcare protection. Second part, protecting individuals and families. All of you are aware that these direct checks will go to people shortly. It's probably going to take 3 weeks, but all of that is in response to the emergency of trying to get people enough money in their hands that they may remain viable. Those of you who are on this line are leaders in the community, and you're entrepreneurial. You have a lot of people depending upon you. There's a lot of people who don't have much support mechanisms, either through family or through those who have employment authority over them. So they're vulnerable. So moving funds directly to families and individuals is an important part of, again, the response of protecting people. The third component of this, protecting small business. And I've directed my own staff, given my own background in small business, as well as the importance of not seeing our economy so negatively contract, that we move quickly on support for small businesses so that people, to the degree they can stay working, build a bridge for perhaps 8 weeks, maybe longer, until the disease subsides, so that we can keep people afloat. I understand you can't turn on and turn off business. It's very difficult to do that. You can't say we're shutting down and then we'll see you in 8 weeks, go on unemployment. Unemployment is beefed up significantly for those who need it, again, as a response to individuals and families. But the third area here of protecting small businesses, our way of trying to provide liquidity and assistance for those businesses that can to remain viable, so that startup becomes not as much of a problem after as it would be if somebody completely shuts down. So we've got this paycheck protection loan program, the rules of which are being written right now. I was on the phone with Nebraska's Banking Association director last night, because the initial rules out of Treasury were panicking our banks. The bank is the primary portal for the Paycheck Protection Program. If I could divert for a moment on that, I think it's a very important program. It should be beneficial to many of the people who are listening to this. But I was asked in the media, is the government going to be able to run all of these programs? And I said, no. It's the reason particularly the Paycheck Protection Act, is being run primarily through the banks. It's an SBA-backed loan that will, on your average payroll, will give you 2.5 times of your average monthly payroll, for which wages and rent, mortgage payments are forgivable for 8 weeks if you keep people on. So that's, it basically is a loan, but a grant embedded in the loan, and it's fundamentally a grant to small businesses. So anybody who is considering doing that, I would urge you to make haste, to do it quickly, to get with your banker, even though the rules aren't set yet, but to get in line and get going, because this is from my perspective, a very beneficial program to small businesses that can keep people working. And basically for 8 weeks, the payroll costs are forgiven if you get the loan. And the loan is going to be easy to get. The criteria are very loose. It's caused some consternation. In any program, there are going to be people who aren't at goodwill that are going to cheat it, and on and on. But this is such an emergency that the very few numbers of people that would do that, particularly in Nebraska, we can't get sidetracked by that. I think this is going to be overwhelmingly helpful to people. Whether or not it's enough, I was asked by the media that last night. May not be. I think one of the initial considerations is when Congress may have to do another package, a fourth round here, that looks at a variety of things, and that this small business component, it may not be big enough. So that is under discussion right now. So I'll just stop there and see if you guys have any questions, and I'll take those and answer them as best as I can. Thank you again for letting me on, and I apologize for the delay. And thank you for I think you had a National Chamber of Commerce representative on the line.
Yes,
So,
U.S. Chamber,
yeah.
Ethan Hellier is with us, and we thank you for taking time out. We know you're very, very busy now, and we do have a few questions.
Okay.
A question that popped up was for the PPP loan, would commissions and distributions to owners get counted into this?
Yeah. You know, that's such an excellent question, and I've read the law myself. I am trying to get triple checked the reality of that answer. Obviously, payroll costs, wages that you pay yourself would be, but whether or not distributions to you I think they are personally can be counted as that, but I need to triple check that before I give a definitive answer. The way I'm reading the law, it seems to me that for under $100,000, wages, payroll costs, pay yourself for FICA tax purposes, plus other distributions could potentially qualify. But let's keep that one on hold because I don't have certitude yet, and I cannot get the fullness of an answer, and that might be Treasury's interpretation of the way in which the law is written. So Treasury has not come out with the fullness of their regulations yet. That's the right question. I've been asking it myself. I've been researching it myself. The way I read it, the answer is potentially yes, but don't take my answer fully as definitive yet because I need to confirm that. And I think it's only going to be confirmed when Treasury makes its final rules, which should be in 48 hours. Okay. So can we put that one on hold? And then Denise, once I get the fullness of answer to that, can I get back to you?
Oh, we'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.
That's a critical question. I thought of it early on myself because honestly, I don't think a lot of people, some policymakers don't understand how small business runs. I mean, you've got your wages you pay yourself for FICA tax purposes, but then there's distribution, which are effectively your wages, but not like this distribution of corporate profits. It's not the same thing. So again, I'm thinking the answer is yes, but let's wait. We need to wait 48 hours, okay?
We had someone who went to their local bank and they were directed to the SBA website. So with the rules still being written, do you have a message for local banks as far as maybe what they should be doing right now to get prepared?
Yes, I'd say, look, they need to get prepared. The portal is going to be the bank. I'm not sending people to the SBA.gov. I don't want to offend people like that. I'm just saying, uh-oh, something happened here. Can you guys still see me? Yeah, you good? You're back? Something went wrong.
We see.
Okay, good. All right. The bank needs to do everything they can to prepare for this. Again, when I was asked in the media before this rolled out, how is the government going to manage this? My answer was through the bank. Now, there are various programs, the main one being the Paycheck Protection Program, which the portal of which will be the bank. The SBA guarantees the loan. The bank is not being paid enough right now to manage that loan. I get it. I was on the phone or texting last night with the key leadership in Washington to bring this up with the Treasury Secretary, and they're working on it. But again, I don't think it's an adequate answer by myself or a bank to say go to SBA. Now, there's a separate loan, the disaster recovery loan. I forget the full title of it. It's Economic, the acronym is DEAL, as I recall. Anyway, that's a more extensive SBA loan that's already out there, which has been modified for the purposes of the pandemic here. That requires a more extensive set of paperwork that will be run through the SBA and the bank. But the Paycheck Protection, the portal, the primary portal is the banker themselves. So I would recommend the banks get with the Nebraska Bankers Association. I think they're getting up to speed quickly on how to manage questions in this regard. Most banks, I think, are readily getting up to speed on how to manage this. But again, the final regs will be out shortly within, I think it's April 3rd at most, they'll be out. So again, we have set the law that the banker is the primary portal, and honestly, the banker they can't subsidize the government. They need to be paid adequately to do this, and we're working on that.
Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask today?
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you especially Congressman Fortenberry and Ethan Hellier from the U.S. Chamber. We really appreciate your time. And we will have all this posted on our website, social media, and YouTube. So if you have any other concerns, give us a call and we'll try to find the resources for you to help out.
Denise, thank you very much. And look, can I just say one more thing? We're here to try to answer any questions. Our role is to, again, try to make public policy that makes sense for America, but to be in service to you, the people here on the ground, 600,000 Nebraskans who I represent in the 1st Congressional District. So if you have questions, again, we're here. We'll do our best to get back to you. And then as we can create these kind of constructive partnerships of information flow, please know I'm readily available to plug back in at however you like, or people are certainly welcome to call us individually, but it's very helpful for you to create a platform for us here for the broader dialogue. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you for taking your time out. You're very busy. Anytime you want to come back, we will accommodate anything you need. So
sorry about the Cattleman's Ball being delayed.
nah. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Take care. We'll see you.